Sadebo, you
Yes.
said that it was President Yaradua who set up the bureau properly. So
Yes.
how effective has it been since it was set up properly?
Well, President Yaradua set it up. He was in the process of setting up, and of course, we all know he passed on. And it was actually outgoing president that eventually inaugurated the bureau. And in the past few years, we have simply been grabbing with, problem of putting in place working structures, effective working structures.
So you haven't done anything really?
No, I'm not saying that we have not done anything. I'm saying that within you have to look at the performance of the bureau within in anti-corruption. There's what we call moral tone from the top. Anti-corruption agencies, including the Code of Conduct Bureau, will not be effective unless the moral tone from the top is very, very, very strong. And strong, and when the moral tone from the top is very strong, then the political will on the part of the political leadership to adequately provide the needful for the anti-corruption agencies to work will be there. So what we have, mostly in the past few years, is simply playing to the gallery as far as funding and providing the necessary facilities and infrastructures for for the corruption agencies to work. So the Code of Conduct Bureau is not an exception. You cannot treat an anti-corruption agency as a Code of Bureau. It's another parasitus. No, it's not another parasite. It's another agency of government. It's specialized agencies of government which should be adequately funded. I'll give you an example. 25 years, Code of Conduct Bureau has no office building of our own. We don't have an office building of our own. The Constitution provides for state offices of Code of Conduct Bureau, and there's no sense of the Constitution where we have an office building of our own. We're trying to make do in state capitals where there are federal secretariats. Where we don't have, we're trying to rent buildings. In most cases, these are not kind of buildings that are conducive for the safety and security of our staff, and also the kind of documents that we work with. So within other limitations, even in 2014 alone, about 184 cases were charged to were referred to the tribunal. Within that same period, more than 10,000 defaulters, were also identified within that same period. But again, the effectiveness and performance is not necessarily measured in terms of prosecution and in terms of number of people you are able to put in jail or in prison. Mm-hmm. Rather, it should be measured in terms of deterrence, in terms of prevention, because primarily we are set up to prevent corruption by instilling ethical values and morality in the conduct of government business.
So
these are not tangible things you can really touch, you can really measure, But deterrence and prevention are a long-term, they are a long-term thing. It's not something you can measure. After 2 years, I've been able to prevent corruption among 10 or 20 people. So we believe that with the incoming of the new government, that is already setting the moral tone from the top, and we believe that the Code of Conduct Bureau will be more effective and in carrying out the constitutional duties assigned to the agency.
Okay, Mr. Adebo, we'll come back to you. Let's just bring in Omololaji. You heard what the things he's put forth.
Yes.
Issues
you wanted to say something.
To react.
Yes.
So
here's your chance.
Yes. I'll just give you a few examples of things you hear when you live in Abuja and you work with people in government, or you socialize with people. So I go into an agency one day, and somebody says, "So Auntie B, you see that young man?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, so he took one Oga's passport to go and basically commit FX fraud because the Oga was traveling, okay? But they only gave him 1 week suspension because his uncle is the head of another agency. Now, this is a young man in his, this is his first job since youth corps. He's already committed fraud, foreign exchange fraud. and all he gets is a week
A
suspension.
crime.
A crime, thank you.
Call it the
A
right
crime.
word, please.
Right.
It's a crime.
He's committed a crime, and you give him 1 week suspension because of who he's connected to. That's bad precedent. Or when you listen to a government, the head of an agency say, the minister represents Mr. President, and I represent the minister. True or false? That's debatable. However, if you're saying you represent the minister and the minister represents the president, shouldn't you therefore be charged with a higher moral standard where the reputation therefore of Mr. President is dependent on the minister, is therefore dependent on you? So when there's complete impunity in the public service, so we listen to Mr. Rosonye, Dr. Adegoroye, Malam El-Rufai, all talk about reformation in the public service and the impunity in government and everything. And everyone spoke about how people need to be able to come up and make complaints and talk and, but nobody does. Because at the end of the day, you become victimized. So if you don't play ball, if you don't align with the system of corruption or the abuse of office, so when we talk about corruption, I always say, let's go back. It starts with first the abuse of office, the complete impunity where you believe that this is my entitlement. And since I am here, I can do what I want. It's reversed in most developed nations where you believe that because I am in government, I am obliged. I am held by a higher set of moral codes and standards. It's the reverse. So it is the person in government in Nigeria that does not queue.
True.
I ended up saying that when at my polling booth, I ended up being Margaret Thatcher, policewoman, you go and queue, because people were coming in with their SSS protocol. And I'm like, if you're that important, they would have put a polling booth
in your backyard.
In your backyard for you. So, so in my polling unit, I ended up literally being like the mad woman fighting because you had people sauntering in with their police detail, their SSS protocol. My polling unit was in the villa. And people were trying, meanwhile, people had been queuing for 4 hours. Old women, pregnant women, nursing mothers, old men. And then you just saunter in and you think you don't need to queue because you are a government official. It would never happen anywhere else in the world. Because you are the government official, you would
It's the reason
why you will queue. Because you have to protect the reputation and protect the reputation of the administration you work for.
Indeed.
So when I say reputation, it's not that I'm trying to be idealistic and not talk about tangibles, but these things are critical. If we cannot hold government officials accountable, if the governing, so each parastater, Dr. Joe Abba, that's the head of public service reform, said his greatest problem is the parastatals, the DGs, the MDs, the CEOs, whatever of the parastatals, because they run these organizations like their backyard. I mean, it's not everybody that does this, but when you say, so we're saying in general, that they run these companies like their mom and pop shops. You bring in your wife's best friend, there's no due process, or you manipulate the system. So you use your HR, or you use not national population commission. Federal character. There's so many easy ways to. Nigerians are like, the Pavlov dogs, where when he was training them, so if you put a puppy here and you say, oh no, you can't move, and you block it, the puppy will go around the other way, then you block that way. I always see that symptom in Nigerians where for each law, there are 1,001 ways to sideline it, or there's 1,001 ways to make it seem like you're obliging, you're in compliance, but we all know you're not. So he said a lot of things that are true. If there's no leadership from the top, and if you also do empower, somebody said once that, I went to ICPC to just talk about the abuse of power in one of the most important government institutions in Nigeria. And that the response he got was, abuse of office is the most difficult thing to prove.
Can I just jump in there? Because, I mean, we're coming back to a set of values that the gentleman from Code of Conduct talked about, and he talked about the moral tone, right? The only basis for a sense of optimism about change for most people is the moral tone and moral quotient of the two principles. They have high moral integrity quotient, and it's off the back of that there's some optimism about Nigeria. But the truth about it is that, yes, you have two good men, okay? But it does not change the underlying dynamic, right? There's a quote I always often use to illustrate this. It's a book by a guy called Jared Diamond. It's titled Collapse. And it talks about societies all throughout history